Yvan from
Italy, now in Montreux.
Thanks for a wonderful stay. Look at this breakfast. Beautiful. Look at this view out of the window. So these are the mountains we're climbing.
These guys are crazy. They're not normal. Anyway, kisses.
Thanks, Yvan.
In part 2, as we travel across Switzerland, we explore the world-famous Swiss tourism industry, its immense but neutral military, its defences, the world's most expensive town, Bollywood and the new tourists, and a Swiss fondue.
Chateau Chillon, famous for Lord Byron's visit. He wrote his poem and allegedly wrote his name on a wall in the dungeon.
It was on Lord Byron's Grand Tour, which was basically an elongated gap year for British aristocrats, that he visited the chateau in 1816, along with Mary Shelley, the creator of Frankenstein. This was a time for the aristocratic British youth, some of the richest young men in the world, to explore European antiquity and culture, purchase or commission works for their stately homes, have some fun, and explore Europe and themselves. Byron himself swam in the canals of Venice and was known for his scandalous private life. Byron did indeed scratch his name in the dungeon, write a poem, and then the longer fable, The Prisoner of Chillon, which has made Switzerland's most visited tourist attraction even more popular. But the very existence of a Swiss tourism industry is a relatively modern phenomenon. The Swiss mountains have always drawn the adventurous and the curious from all over the world, but it wasn't always the case.
Right, a bit steeper than we thought. Look at this. Hey, Pippin.
Oh my god. I nearly froze now. I did freeze.
A bit harder than we thought. And it's very wet as well. What a time to be alive. Coming out of the clouds a bit. Pippin.
Historically, Switzerland's Alps, which make up 60% of its surface area, were a barrier to be crossed or avoided, certainly not to be visited. Hannibal's conquest of Italy in 200 BC, crossing the Alps with soldiers mounted on elephants, is amongst the most famous of all military achievements. In the late 17th century, refined people even expected the blinds of their carriages to be pulled down as they passed mountainous scenery, quite the opposite of today. European industrialization and the advent of disposable income and paid holiday, as well as the large-scale rail transport, led to modern tourism. The British upper classes came in higher numbers, and in 1863, Thomas Cook, a British travel operator still very much in the business today, promoted the first conducted tour of Switzerland. Adventurers started to summit the country's most famous peaks, and this was followed by the invention of modern skiing. Swiss engineering ingenuity opened up mountain passes with roads and tunnels, and trains were developed which could scale mountains. A train almost to the summit of the Jungfrau was completed in 1912 and remains Europe's highest railway station, allowing all sorts of activities to happen at what they call the top of Europe. But all these tourists would need a place to stay. Enter one César Ritz. Born in the Valais village of Niederwald in 1865, King Edward VII later called him the hotelier of kings and the king of hoteliers. Working at hotels in Switzerland, Paris and Germany, he was invited to run the Savoy in London. In 1889, he opened a hotel under his own name, the Ritz in Paris, on Place Vendôme. London followed, and today the name Ritz is synonymous with the highest standards in luxury. The École Hôtelière de Lausanne was formed in 1893 and is still considered one of the world's finest schools for hoteliers.
Very much started the climb, day 2. Whew. That's what we've done so far, from down in that valley. Long way to go. First cowbells, first cows. What a climb. Right, first pit stop. I'm exhausted. Look at that. Café du Loin. Never been happier to see you. Merci, monsieur. C'est très gentil.
Merci.
Sandwich stop. Down there is where we started the day. So that is Villeneuve. France to the left of the lake, Switzerland to the right, Montreux just around the corner to the right. We've climbed a long way. Lac Le Mans, not Lake Geneva. Oh my God, look how steep that is. Clouds above, All right, camera away. Wow, it's fucking steep. Oh. There we go. Oh, there's lights at the other end. Not really see a thing. That down there is where we started this morning. Yeesh. So, through the wildflowers, you can see a hydroelectric dam. It's basically energy storage. So, when you have a spike in power demand, they open the gates, create a lot of electricity, power Switzerland, sell it across the border for great profits, and then when power's cheap at night, they pump it back up. Genius.
Switzerland is a famously neutral country, but neutral does not mean weak. To remain so, a country must be able to defend itself. But how did we get here? Acting as a buffer between the great powers of Europe, Switzerland has not participated in a modern war since its neutrality was established by the Treaty of Paris in 1815. It remained neutral during both world wars, but recently did impose economic sanctions on Russia after the invasion of Ukraine, a deviation from their traditional stance. Aside from having just a neutral stance, Switzerland is indeed a fortress. The Swiss National Redoubt, which began in the 1880s, is a series of fortifications to defend the country from invasion. The plan involved fortifying key alpine passes, tunnels and peaks with bunkers, artillery and supply depots, making any advance by an enemy costly and difficult. This strategy aimed to deter invasion by ensuring that Switzerland could resist occupation, even if the lowland cities were captured. Motorways can double as runways for military planes. Artillery is hidden in cattle sheds, and mountains are riddled with defensive bunkers and ammunition. Switzerland has a mandatory military service for all able-bodied male citizens who take their guns home with them, with ammunition being dispersed in the event of invasion. You can opt out, but it means higher taxes. Finally, by law, each person in Switzerland is entitled to a place in an underground bunker, with many in private residences.
Everyone just uses it for storage.
Over the years, leaders such as Colonel Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein have called upon Swiss companies to help build them their own bunkers.
The man up there seems to be cutting the grass with a hand mower. As we approach Gstaad, we see all these cow sheds. Yes, we're in winter. The cows go to hibernate.
Entering the Bernese Oberland, we're now in prime cow country. If there was a national animal for Switzerland, the cow would be it. Not only a source of economic wealth through its dairy and leather products, but also an icon. Shortly after the founding of the Swiss Confederation, during the Battle of Sempach in 1386, the cow symbolized the Swiss fight against the Habsburg lion. The average Swiss person consumes nearly 370 kilograms of dairy products per year, and the cow conjures up ideals of tradition, history, and their good nature. But to feed these cows in the winter months, the meadows must be cut. Also, to keep the landscape looking chocolate box. Grass cutting is almost a national pastime in Switzerland, with it often being done with a hand scythe and rake, as it has been for centuries.
So here we have Gstaad Airport. Just the one jet. I'm sure in winter there are a lot more. See the first ski lifts. We're one of the poshest valleys in the entire world.
Gstaad is one of the most expensive places on the planet, and for a few weeks each year, in the high winter season, it probably has the highest density of some of the richest people in the world who come to enjoy it. Its tourist motto is, "Come up, slow down," but whilst it's undeniably a peaceful place, there is more to it than meets the eye. Swiss and foreign tourists alike flock to the area, and celebrities have made it their home. Despite how well known Switzerland is, and how well known many of its brands are, it's hard to name famous Swiss residents. There's of course Roger Federer, but that's sort of it. They claim Einstein, but that's a stretch. Unlike my country, where celebrity hunting is almost a national sport, in Switzerland they're often just ignored. In 2014, the Swiss president, Didier Burkhalter, was seen taking the train without bodyguards. It's hard to imagine that happening in many other countries. Federer can go to lunch without causing a fuss, and Michael Schumacher used to do his shopping in Geneva without any trouble. Of course, there are tax incentives for the rich celebrities to base themselves in Switzerland, but it's also a place where they're left alone, and Gstaad is this. They say Julie Andrews was among the first movie stars to come in the 1960s, proclaiming it to be the last paradise in a crazy world. Valentino has had a chalet since the late 70s, Roger Moore the same, and even Madonna. One of the most expensive schools in the world, Le Rosé, has its winter campus here so the students can ski. The town centres on the Palace Hotel, where the rich and famous can party the night away from prying eyes. The mountains are no longer the terrifying prospect that they once were for the grand tourists. They're all the same shops for the super rich you would find in the world's capitals and the playgrounds of St. Bart's or Gstaad's flashier Swiss rival, St. Moritz. But as word has spread, this town is no longer just a hideaway for old Europe, but for Arabs seeking a refuge from the summer heat of the Gulf, Americans on their Euro trips, and anyone with the chuffs to get in. We were, of course, staying a couple of miles down the road in a very cosy Airbnb.
Just checking out of our Gstaad Airbnb. Keep my voice down. Gstaad in the distance, the palace, hotel. This is the view we woke up to. You could hear the river through the night. Yeah, sad to be leaving.
Some quite good packing, right?
Excellent packing.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us in your Airbnb.
Our pleasure. Fantastic.
Were we okay as guests?
Fantastic guests.
Not too messy?
No. Very pleasant people.
Perfect. It was wonderful. We didn't have to lock our bikes. Must be the safest place in the world.
Okay.
Bye.
Gstaad, come up, slow down. I love that. First gnome we've seen. Climbing out of Gstaad, on our way to Interlaken. No one does chocolate box quite like the Swiss. Swiss timber yard. You can have water in the wood. Very different to Makoko. It's a good clunk. So here we are at Appaloosa, having done 50 odd kilometers, and it's the only place open in the entire town for Swiss Sundays. All the supermarkets are shut, all the restaurants are shut. There was a vending machine I did see which was working. Oh.
On Sundays, all shops and offices in Switzerland are closed. The exceptions are those attached to airports with public transport, or those in tourist areas with a special license. As a young single professional lad working in Geneva, it wasn't ideal and didn't help with them occasional Sunday blues, but it's hard to argue against it. Sunday is the Sabbath, and it's important to take a break, if not from the cycling. Despite some calls to liberalise the law, they have failed to pass when put for referendum, with the majority voting to spend their Sundays with their families, swimming in the lakes, skiing in the mountains, or having some time off at home, a fundamental right to the Swiss. As the shopping centre replaces the church in many other countries and families and communities become more distant, I can't say it's a bad thing. We of course all do enjoy the conveniences of modern life, but sometimes it's good for some enforced time off. Arriving in Interlaken, a town between two lakes, the legacy of Thomas Cook's tours is at its zenith. But rather than European tourists freed to holiday by the spoils of industrialisation, it's the Asian visitors who are now in town. For the same reasons which first attracted the British upper classes, the mountains, the lakes, the fresh air, the service, you can now add the shopping, with half of Chinese travel budgets being set aside for the sport. On top of that, Swiss neutrality, safety and cleanliness draw Asian visitors. Paris syndrome, a term coined by a Japanese psychiatrist to describe the severe shock and disappointment experienced by some Japanese tourists in Paris when their expectations do not match the reality, is not an issue for Switzerland. Now, you wouldn't blink twice if you saw a Scottish whiskey shop in Switzerland, but a Chinese baijiu one? We were told this was the first, and almost certainly won't be the last.
And when you like, you can try a little.
We try some baijiu.
Yes.
So you're saying baijiu means white spirit, white alcohol.
White alcohol.
From China.
From China.
Wow.
Above 85% local Swiss customer like baijiu.
Wow.
Say my name, yeah?
Li Jianwei.
Yeah, very good.
That's your name?
Yes.
And it's Hublot.
It's the Hublot. I studied in Germany, a little worked in Germany, and then later I'm here in Switzerland. And this is a classic product. Yeah, normally it's 52% alcohol. At this moment, last year, 2023, turnover from this brand in China about 4 billion Swiss francs.
4 billion Swiss francs. This one brand.
This brand. This is the number 5 brand in China.
Okay, and the number one?
Number 1 is Malta is number 1, 20 billion
Swiss francs.
Swiss francs. And this brand, Malta, is also the world number 1 in the spirits industry. Market value for this brand is always above Louis Vuitton Group.
Above Louis Vuitton Group.
Yes, this brand.
Who is the owner?
The state.
The state?
Yes.
Okay, then let's try some.
Baijiu for beginner.
Join us.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Dampe.
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 Switzerland's Chinese tourists spend an average of 380 francs per day, second only to visitors from the Gulf, with the average German spending 130. Of course, it's not apples for apples, and the Chinese tend to spend fewer nights, and their spending is often inflated by luxury shopping, mainly on watches, which tend to be one-off purchases. For Indian tourists, however, Switzerland has an extra allure. It's been a filming location for over 200 Bollywood films, drawing visitors to come and see the sights for themselves. Sangam, directed by Raj Kapoor, shot in 1964, was the first. But it was filmmaker Yash Chopra, going to the country for his honeymoon, which really started the trend. He returned to make Fazil in 1985. And Chandni in 1989. Giving the country and its scenery a romantic connotation for many Indians. But the 90s were the high point for Bollywood in Switzerland, in part to replace the mountain scenes of Kashmir after the security situation worsened. During this time, a dozen Indian films a year were being made in the country, but it was Chopra's DDJL, Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge, which would become one of the most famous Bollywood films ever. It now explains why there were lots of Indian tourists taking pictures on a specific bridge in Gstaad that morning. In 2011, Chopra was ordered the honorary title of Ambassador of Interlaken, and Jungfrau Railways named a train after him, only the second after the railway's founder, Adolf Guya. You can even stay in the Yash Chopra suite at the 5-star Victoria Jungfrau Grand Hotel and Spa for a few thousand francs a night, including breakfast. After his death in 2012, a 350-kilogram statue was erected in his honor, an event organized by the Interlaken Tourism and Jungfrau Railways. They are canny, the Swiss. Modern Bollywood does not have the same reverence for the Swiss Alps, but Neeraj Chopra, no relation, an Indian Olympic gold medalist in the javelin, was in 2022 named a Swiss Friendship Ambassador for India. Tourism generates roughly 3% of Switzerland's GDP and creates over 170,000 full-time equivalent jobs. They may not have been looking after tourists for as long as they have cows, but they sure know what they're doing. I was out of batteries, so didn't film Interlaken's finest Swiss fare. So instead, here's a fondue I had in Geneva a few days later.
À de rive. Santé.
Beyond sachet and the pickles. Dried meat. Which is dried meat. Beer and one other which I don't know. I'm doing this right-handed today.
As opposed to...
Normally it's left-handed only, left-handed drinking. Look at that, isn't that lovely?
Maybe not breaking any Swiss fondue rules.
No.
After 20 years of living in Switzerland. 20 years?
21 years next month.
Félicitations.
Merci. Filming Colony Nature. Is that that?
Done. Did it this morning.
We've done it, have you?
Hot. Rude to blow.
That's right.
And monsieur, ça c'est quoi?
Ça, c'est la religieuse.
So it's the crispy cheese. So they take it off to the kitchen and heat the cheese up a little bit more.
And then you bring it back and they put a little bit of something special in it, which I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is.
Divisé par deux.
Put on.
There we go.
Some would say it's worth waiting for.
Less.
Join us next time as we reach our final destination, Zurich, via an encounter with Bond, the shady world of commodity trading, chocolate and banking, of course.
I'm curious about your bank secrecy laws here.
And the dark side-ish of the country. Until then, auf Wiedersehen.